We are here today with Kellie Garrett, Kellie Garrett Enterprises. She claims to have zero ambition. You will know she has lots of ambition. She is a free spirit, and she never dreamt of being a wildly productive executive, let alone an entrepreneur. She is one of Canada's 100 most powerful people and top 25 influential women. From executive coaching and life coaching to consulting on internal culture change, leadership, and business strategy, to speaking on various related topics. Please welcome Kellie Garrett. Oh, you guys are good. All right, Kellie, so we're going to talk first about, you're going to provide us a little insight about your career or the business and why you chose it, but I also want you to touch on your whole free spirit thing.
Okay, so I grew up in Montreal, and like many of us, in a somewhat dysfunctional family. So my life ambition was to be happy, because I didn't see a ton of that when I was growing up. And I was good at school, like A+ average effortlessly. And so I started in journalism because I was a good writer. I had failed to get a position at McGill University as a classical flutist in performance, so writing was the other thing I thought I was good at, or maybe the only thing I was good at. And so I went to J school in Ottawa at Carleton, and that was too much work if you didn't really want to do a lot of work. So I switched to English literature and philosophy, which made my father faint. And so I graduated with this wildly practical degree in 1982, and my boyfriend said, "We're going to sail around the world, do you want to come?" Sure. So I went with 5 guys on a 40-foot sailboat when I was 22, and we left Toronto Harbor and made it as far as the Caribbean. And we were in a storm with 40-foot waves, and we knew that because the mast was 40 feet high, and so it was. And the mainsail ripped in half, and I became the de facto leader during the storm, which I quite liked, because there's something called your middle ear that causes you to ralph in turbulent seas. So I have better middle ear than the men did. So that meant I got to be the boss of them. And up until that point, I wasn't. So that was my first taste of leadership while being a free spirit. I come back to Toronto in 1984, can't get any job other than an admin assistant. Not that there's anything wrong with that profession, but I don't think I was meant for it, because I think organization skills are part of it. So I went and did an advertising and PR diploma because they had a fantastic co-op program in Toronto, and thought, I can't believe when I got a job as an advertising copywriter, I would go to work, I would get paid to work and to write and talk, 2 things I'm good at. Wow, and I could go home at 5 and there was no homework, and drink till 1 in the morning and do it all over again the next day. And so life in my 20s was fantastic and free-spirited. And then I had children. Or I should say I had a child. And so my mother died when I was 30. She died of breast cancer and she was 48. So that kind of rocks your world. My sister and I suddenly thought we were going to have a really truncated existence. So I'm now a free spirit who's here for a good time, not a long time. And I'm like, get me with child. So I have a child who happens to be a peach. I think it's because I'm an amazing mother. I had no idea. And I say, I want to have 4 little gaffers and be a stay-at-home mother and bake bread and grow flowers. And he's blanching, saying, we can't afford to live on 1 salary in downtown Toronto. Oh, that's okay, we'll move to Belleville or Kingston or Ottawa, and he finds a job in Regina. That's okay, we'll go for 2 years, we'll have 4 babies, and then we'll, I wasn't good at math either. And I failed economics. And then we'll move to Calgary or something. And so I move here 8 months pregnant, have a second baby when the first baby, who's now climbing wall units and is 16 months old. And it's not that easy to have 2 small children who later are diagnosed with ADHD. And so I ended up back at work 4 months later. So work was solace all of a sudden. So the free spirit thing was killed pretty well, having 2 little kids in such short order. So I did a year as editor of Sask Business Magazine, which was kind of ironic because I knew nothing about Saskatchewan. I remember one time they said, the mayor of Cut Knife is on the phone. I said, cut knife, come on, get out of here. And I get on the phone, cut knife, you're pulling my leg, right? Who are you and who's your boss? And then I went and worked at Farm Credit, where I ended up for 20 years. And I remember sitting with my coffee in the morning, because both babies were quite active, and then toddlers, and then you know what comes after that. And I just felt like I'm not really good at this, being a mother thing. It felt like a science experiment. I really loved them. I was good at hugging them. I don't think I was good at that much else. And at work, I felt like I was really good at work. And so I felt like I was deriving some self-esteem there. And it also was a bit of an anesthetic against difficulties at home, because my husband and I had had a blast in our 20s living on a sailboat and then living in downtown Toronto. It wasn't so blasty here with 2 small kids and, you know, a significant disability when Connor was finally diagnosed at 4. And so we started fighting, and we had never fought. Like, I know that sounds ridiculous, but we really had never fought till then. In fact, one famous fight in my mind and his was, he said, what happened to my fluffy, happy-go-lucky, free-spirited bunny? I don't know, you've turned into a tiger. And I said, well, I think this is who I really am. And you know that painting, The Scream? I think we both looked like that. And you know, you say something and you just know it's true. It was like, oh my God, this is who I am. I'm gonna have to learn how to manage this thing that's a lot like my mother, whom I didn't want to be like. I want to look like her. She looked like Angelina Jolie, but she was not that much fun to be around. And she makes me look like a shrinking violet. So, yeah, I had to learn how to manage this new bucking horse that was a tiger and was really missing the free spirit. So there's my entire life story.
In 2 minutes or less.
I think that was a bit more than 2 minutes.
That was good.
I forgot to tell you I warmed to my topic.
So we're going to go into a little bit, because I know you're a coach, and did you see CTV yesterday? CTV at noon, a coach came on and talked about coaching and just said, and you're on the list, International Coaching Federation or something, is that right? So he talked about there are so many coaches out there who calling themselves coach, but they're not really certified coaches. And we were talking about Beachbody. It's like, yes, I've done the course. And so, but you're not a coach, you've just done the course. You have done your work, so I know that. So I want to talk about benefits of coaching. And I think of, we all start kindergarten, we have a teacher who's like a coach, and then we take dance lessons and we have a coach, and we take swimming or we take drama or whatever you take. We have these coaches all through high school, and then we get out, we go to university, and then we're out on our own, and like the money counts now. And now we don't have a coach. And I just wanted to ask, just why do we do that? Why are we quitting now when the money counts? What is it in us? And well, do men do that?
I think men and women, most don't have coaches until they get to the executive level. I mean, I think it's getting better now in terms of companies investing in coaches when you're in the lower echelons. I was very lucky. I worked at Farm Credit, and in 2002, they started investing heavily in fixing us executives and getting us coaches. And so I had a different coach every year for 10 years while I was at Farm Credit. And I could not get over how much more progress I made with a coach than I did with bosses. I mean, you have good bosses, you have not so good bosses. You have bosses who are good at some things, but maybe not coaching you or helping you get out of your own way. They might be good at helping you with technical things, professional things, but not that good at helping you with maybe how you're impacting people and so on. And so that's why I was inspired to become a coach 10 years ago. And I did coaching within Farm Credit for the 5 years prior to leaving with people who weren't in my division so that they were safe from me.
Was there anyone particular that ever reached out to you and inspired you or dared you to be better?
Oh, I had many, many teachable moments, yes. I had peers who would tell me how annoying I was when I was late, because I was always late. I had employees who would tell me that I was impacting them negatively. I remember one time, I had always made a big deal in my division that you had to meet deadlines, and that if you weren't going to meet a deadline, you had to let me know at least 24 hours in advance. And so this wonderful young admin assistant comes and talks to the tiger and says, well, it doesn't apply to you apparently. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, I'm the one responsible for putting the board reports together, and yours are always late. And you always give me an excuse as to why they're late, but they're late. I know every month they're gonna be late. And I'm like, okay, I'm so sorry, and what could I do? And she said, well, just give me a realistic date and stick to it, and let me know 24 hours in advance. Busted. And so that seems simple, but it's hard to speak truth to power. And so I really appreciated that she did that, and I realized that I had been treating myself like I was more important. I wouldn't have done that to the CEO or to the board, and so that was a teachable moment. I had many. One of the things that I really struggled with was, apparently I have a powerful presence. I did not know that till I was 40. I honestly didn't. And I remember we did 360s incessantly at FCC, and I had another 360 saying I was intimidating and a powerful presence and basically irritating. And so I was talking to my coach and saying, I wish I could cut that out of me. I don't see it, I don't get it, it's not who I am. And he said, well, until you face that that is who you are, it's in your DNA, you don't have a prayer of managing it. And so he used the analogy of a high performance car, which is kind of funny given that we're in a Mercedes shop. And he said, a Ferrari's still a Ferrari when the engine is turned off. And even when it's parked, you notice it, but it's not thrumming. And it can give her on the Autobahn, but it can't on Arcola. And so you have to learn to use the throttle. It's appropriate to let your presence and your power out when you're on stage. It's not appropriate when you're in a meeting and you don't want to dominate and you want to hear other people's opinions. But if you're already having the positional power and you also have a powerful presence and you're opinionated and you talk too much, then guess what? Other people have no ability to participate. So that was wonderful, wonderful coaching for me. And I still use it. I still use it in my family, my extended family, because I am a big presence, like my mother. And my mother never got the coaching and never learned how to manage herself.
Wow. So in your bio, you talk a lot about living a courageous life in your home, in your work, in your community. What does that mean for you, living a courageous life?
I think that a lot of us play it small, not just at work, but even at home and in marriages and with friends and in our communities, because we want to be liked and we want to be, and it's okay to want to be liked. Apparently the only people who truly don't care what other people think, according to Brene Brown, are psychopaths. So apparently we don't want to be a psychopath. So caring a little bit about what other people think is a good thing. It's a healthy human thing. But caring too much and having it impede our ability to say what we really think when someone makes a racist or a sexist remark, which happened a number of times, of course, and has happened to all of us. And it's not comfortable to be the one to call out and say that is not appropriate. And you know, sometimes we expect the only woman in the room. I was the only woman for 10 years on an executive team. We expect the only woman to be the one who advocates for women. We expect there was an East Indian guy on our executive team for a while, and he said, I'm the token brown guy and you're the token woman. And we were the ones who were expected to speak up about diversity and gender all the time. And that's not right, that's not fair. And I think a lot of us, it's easier to be silent when I don't want to just pick on gender and racism, but you know, it's still something we haven't solved, and Canada likes to think it's ahead of the game, and I think we are in many ways, but we're not there yet. And so we need to stand up when there's something not right happening, and so that's part of being courageous to me. But it's also having the courage to advocate for your kid who has a disability, as I had to at times.
And continuing with that, because many times we don't speak up to the president, we don't speak up to the senior management, we don't speak up to anyone in a position that's higher than us. And we don't want to offend, we don't think we're worth it, and we don't think we're good enough, we don't think we have anything to add. Does anyone else feel this way, or is it just me? All right, just making sure, not just all about me. So how do we speak up how do we speak up to power and these people in a respectful way?
You know, I remember one of my first forays into saying what I thought to someone very powerful. I was about 33, and I was standing around with some other people, and this very powerful VP stomped down the hall and just laced into this woman who was sitting in an office, and we were in the middle of talking to her when she arrived. So she just blasts her, leaves. We pick up the pieces with the crying colleague, and I went back to my office, and I just thought, that is just not right. So I went to her office, didn't go in her office, just stood in the doorway, and said, you know, can I talk to you for a minute? Yes. And I said, I don't get it. You have everything. You're bright. We look up to you. You're the only woman on the executive team. And then you slay this poor person in the hallway in front of all of us with no respect. And, you know, now we're all afraid of you. Like, why would you do that? And then I'm standing there realizing I'm in the opening of the lion's lair. And she's like, you're right. It's my fatal flaw. Can I take you for lunch tomorrow? Okay. You know, people who are very powerful are not used to people standing up to them. And so I think unwittingly, I didn't give it a lot of thought, I think I played into her, don't you want to be better than that? Don't you want to influence us for good and not ill? And so I think sometimes when we go to talk to senior people, we're not thinking of them as human. We're thinking of them as evil people who have bad impacts on us, but they're people.
Talking a lot about courage. So yeah, I've got the courage. I'm gonna go do something, and I fall on my butt. You know, what happens when, I'm sure we all fall on our butts sometimes. What do we do, and how do we just get up and do it again?
So have you been reading Brene Brown lately, or? I am an acolyte, I confess, of Brene Brown. So I'm certified in her Daring Way work, but I'm also now certified in her Dare to Lead work. So she has this new book that came out last month, and she has basically translated a lot of her work about living a wholehearted life and not playing small to the workplace. And so she argues, especially in her book Rising Strong, but she talks about it again in this book, that if you dare anything in life and you don't play it small, it's not if, it's when you will fall on your butt. And so she teaches rising skills. So some of the rising skills are to know what your values are, and to choose which things are worth taking on, because not everything is worth taking on, and to have a very small circle of people you can confide in when you do fall, who can help shore you up. She calls it names that would fit on a sacred square of 1 inch by 1 inch. So it's not every Tom, Dick, and Harriet. It's a very few number of trusted friends. And then get up and go in there again.
It's as easy as that.
Well, it's not easy, but you know, Brene has done a ton of research on courage and talks about how vulnerability is inseparable from courage. And she's done a lot of work with the military, and she did some work with Navy SEALs. And she said, okay, there's got to be some examples from you guys about how you didn't feel vulnerable when you were going off to do something brave. And they said, no, ma'am, because that's how they roll. There are no instances we can think of where we went into something and we weren't scared to death, knowing literally we could die doing this. We were scared to death and we went in anyway. And so I think a lot of us think, I'll do X when I feel comfortable. I'll go for that promotion, or I'll try this, or I will try for a certification, but oh my God, there's an exam and I hate exams. Whatever, everybody has a Waterloo. And so I think expecting, at FCC we used to say, get comfortable being uncomfortable. And so if you don't expect to be comfortable, that actually makes it easier, because they say the worst source of stress is mismatched expectations. If we expect something to be hard, and it is hard, it's still hard, but it's not half as hard as if we expected it to be easy.
I think when anyone finds themselves uncomfortable, do they just keep pushing till they become, it's like, well, I'm too comfortable now, I gotta do more. Yeah, it's like, I gotta do more, yeah. So in your own leadership journey, this is taken from your bio, you have slayed many inner dragons. What inner dragons have you slayed?
How much time do you have? I wasn't very confident in the business world. I was confident as an individual human, but I wasn't terribly confident in the business world. I got promoted to VP when I was 37, and I wasn't ready. And I think I was talented and had a good brain and good people skills, but I didn't really know how to be a VP. And so the first thing I got told was that I was too informal, I had too much fun with my staff, and I had to stop wearing tie-dye. So there's this picture of me when I'm 37. There was a thing in the Globe and Mail, and I'm wearing a brown suit, and I have brown duck hair, and a boring necklace, and you can just tell in the picture, oh my God, like the free spirit's dead. Like it's a dead duck picture. And I tried for a year. I wore navy blue suits, I wore brown suits, I wore totally fade into the woodwork stuff, and I was completely not myself, and I was miserable, not having fun. Everyone around me was miserable, and you weren't there. You came later. Maybe you were miserable too, but I was having fun then. And I just thought, if this is what it takes to be a VP, I don't want to be a VP. So some of the dragons I slayed were, how do I find a way to be myself in the corporate world? I would find fringy jackets with fringy things and tassels on necklaces, like little things to give a clue that I wasn't a brown duck. I read about the imposter syndrome, which men suffer from as well as women, but women are usually more familiar with it. It's this feeling, no matter how talented you are and no matter how many credentials you have, that you're not enough, that you're not good enough, that it's only a matter of time till they find you out. So that was one of mine. Another one of mine was, I came from a very esoteric field, English literature, advertising, philosophy, and I was working with lawyers and accountants and agrologists and people with scientific backgrounds, and I felt like I was just this lightweight who couldn't prove the ROI of communications and marketing very well, and just felt like I wasn't as good as those other professions. So that was one of them. And another thing that I really fought hard within myself about was the feeling that I didn't have enough credentials, which was related to that one. So that's why I have more credentials than a sane human can have. I wanted to prove I was good. I did a Master of Arts in Leadership. I went to Harvard for 2 months. I got certified as a corporate director. You name it, I got it. So I think I'm done. Like, I don't want to go to school anymore.
Do you have a do-over moment? And what would it be?
Oh, God, I have so many. I'll do 2. In my personal life, I divorced when my kids were 5 and 6. And apparently 80% of families with a kid with a disability don't make it. I was the one who bailed. We could not communicate during that time. My response to the diagnosis was to cry constantly and drink wine. And my ex's response was to try every new fad, like goat's milk and this, that, and the other thing, no dye, blah, blah, blah. A do-over would, before you give up on a marriage, when you have children, I don't think you should stay no matter what, but I wish I had tried harder. Now, I'm better at this age at granting myself grace for doing the best I could at the time, but I think it's really hard on kids and on families. I am very blessed. I'm friends with my ex, and we brought up the kids in the same city. He and his wife come over to our house for dinner. He came to my wedding. I'm very, very lucky. On the work front, the do-over for me would have been, I didn't really understand that I was bright until I was in my early 40s. I would have pursued law or one of those professions that gets you the instant entree in the business world and then gone and done whatever I wanted. But I was a free spirit and I had no ambition. And I didn't know I was a tiger. I thought I was a fluffy bunny. He called me bunny. I mean, that's grounds for divorce right there, really. So I think I would have done that. And I would have sought mentors earlier. I think a lot of women, and I'm going to date myself here because I am going to be 60 next year, my generation, but I see it very much with a lot of the young women I mentor now, finding a partner seems to be more of a preoccupation with women, even young women these days, than men. It's not that the men don't want a partner, but they don't expect that having a partner will be at odds with having a career. And I find a lot of women are the ones who still carry the lion's share of the organizational stuff at home and the kid stuff, and it's getting better. It's much better than my generation. But I think women need to look in the mirror and find a way to pursue what brings them joy and will help them realize their potential, as well as being a mother. Because men expect to have it all, so why shouldn't we?
Good one. So last question, if you could give all of us one life lesson, what would it be?
Have more fun. What are we doing that is bringing us joy? It's easy in the middle of a very full life with little kids and a job, hopefully, that is using our brain and our potential. And maybe we're blessed to have a partner and good friends to fit it all in. And so then we end up racing around and we don't give ourselves time to even meditate or think about what matters to us or our soul. And before you know it, you're almost 60. So I had a ton of fun till I was about 32, and then it wasn't that much fun till I was about 40, and then there was intermittent fun. And now I'm like, fun, man. I want to have fun till I'm gone.
You talked about having fun, and so much topic on work-life balance, and I don't know how I feel about that. Because if you're 25 years old and you are working your butt off to establish yourself, don't tell me not to work 12 hours a day, because I absolutely loved it. Did anyone? Do you love, if you love what you're doing, it's like, and then it's like, you should have balance. This is what I love. What do you think of that?
Well, I hate the term work-life balance, because I think work is part of life.
Yeah.
I think it's different for all of us. I am blessed or cursed, depending on whether you're my husband and kids or me, with too much energy. I have a medical condition called iron overload. So if you have too much iron, you have too much energy. Just like if you're anemic, you don't have enough energy. So people who are anemic are always cold and they don't have enough energy. People like me are always warm, even before we were a blessed middle-aged woman, and have too much energy. And so for me to work 12 hours a day and then go party when I was in my 20s, I wasn't tired, but my friends were. And I'm not going to tell you how old I am again, but at this age, I regularly work 10 or 12-hour days, and I still have time to have happy hour with my husband and go play with friends and have happy hour with them too, and that seems to be a theme about what's fun for me. So maybe I need a different credential. Hi, my name is. So I love working, and so it's funny, I went to an astrologist because someone gave me a gift certificate for it, and he said, I'm not really seeing something here that jives with your age. And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, I see you working flat out for the next 15 years. And I said, good, because I have no desire to not work. I don't want to work 7 days a week, which is what my lousy boss, Kellie Garrett, has had me doing the last 2.5 months. I want to get better at capacity. I hired Jody to run events from now on. But I love working. So further to your point, no matter where you are in life, if you love working, why not work? As long as you're not shirking your responsibility as a parent or family member, et cetera, and hopefully you're having the odd time with a friend.
Amen, sister.